Hello, welcome to On the Road with Illinois Stories. Every fall, we lead a bus tour of our most loyal viewers to several sites where we shoot our favorite story titles of Illinois stories. Today, we'll be going to the Lincoln Heritage Museum in Lincoln, Weldon Springs State Park, Mount Pulaski Courthouse, but we start here in Elkhart at the old Gillette Farm.
Well, my name is Lisa, and I am the seventh generation descendant of John Dean Gillette, who built this original farmhouse. He was, there is so much history to cover, I won't be able to get to it, all of it, but he was known for his raising of shorthorn cattle that he exported off this farm. He exported about 2,000 head of cattle, 1,000 head of hogs, right here, put them on the C&A Railroad with a special spur that they brought into his pasture, shipped them to the East Coast, where they, believe it or not, were put on ships and sent to the European markets where they brought a higher dollar. So he was known as the cattle king of the world. That was a quote from the London Gazette. We have the article still up in the attic. One of the amazing things about this farm is that each generation left whatever was there for the next generation, who then brought all their stuff in, unlike many old homes where they divide up and sell and give away the stuff. So really everything from 7 generations is still in this house or in the outbuildings. It was a real working farm. I grew up in Lake Forest, but I used to summer down here with my grandmother, Elizabeth Drake. She married my grandfather, William Drake. His family built and owned the Drake Hotel in Chicago. So you'll see some of their pieces throughout the house too. Every piece in the house has a story, which is so remarkable. Obviously, we won't be able to cover it all, but if you see something and you're really interested, stop and ask me. I'll be sure to address that with you. This original farmhouse was what John Dean Gillette built. He had about 20,000 acres at the time of his death, which he had accumulated little by little during his lifetime for as little as $5 an acre. People used to think the prairie was worthless. There were no trees growing out there, so it had to be worthless ground. And back in that day, that's what they believed. There were 4 rooms downstairs, which when the addition was built, they removed the dividing walls. So now there are 2 larger rooms downstairs. And then 4 small bedrooms upstairs, which are exactly like they were back in the day. They still got the little porcelain knobs. You have to bend over to open them up. The 3rd floor is an attic playroom, if you can imagine it. We only do the ground floor, so you'll have to use your imagination. 7 generations worth of toys. Horsehair rocking horses, doll houses, you name it, they're up there. The addition was put on by his grandson, my great-grandfather, Hiram Keyes, and it was built in 1906. At that time, there were so many extended family members living here that they needed the extra bedroom. So the house now has 9 bedrooms. Of course, now that it's just my husband and I bumping around here, we'd like to take off a few of them. My sister and I actually own the property together. My sister's Kathy Carolyn, and it has come down to our generation to take care of it. This addition was built by German stone cutters and wood carvers that the family brought over from Germany. They used to summer in Europe, so they really loved European architecture. This front entryway is very typical of a German entryway. The leaded glass windows, you'll be able to see them better from inside the house, were brought over from England. The stone tower was built at the same time, and that was because there was no rural electricity. They had a summer kitchen and an old pump out back of the house where they used to pump their water for the kitchen. So they put a cistern on the 3rd floor, brought the pipes in from the cistern into the kitchen, hand pumped the water to the cistern, and then when they turned on the faucets, the gravity flow, because it was 3 stories up, would bring the water right into the kitchen with plenty of pressure. So that was the height of modern water plumbing at the time. As you come into the house, be sure to look up, because it's a large group. At the very top of the stairs is a portrait of Grandfather Gillette. It was painted in the front part of this house overlooking the prairie. And back then there was nothing but prairie. I would love to go back. I've got a diary in the attic that he rode out one day with his granddaughter on the front of the saddle, and the wildflowers were lapping at the stirrups. I can only imagine what the prairie must have looked like, but you'll get a good idea of it, just the idea of the spread of it from that portrait. All the wood in the house, with the exception of the knotty pine in the pine room, was harvested right here from the woods. It's mostly walnut, but you'll notice the stripes in the floors. That's oak and walnut. And all the banistered finials and the carvings were done, again, by the German wood carvers and stonemasons. Okay, as we go through, take a look at the piano. That also came from Inez Mermier's apartment, and that was purchased at the very first World's Fair in St. Louis in 1904. It was Steinway & Son Piano Company's exhibition piece. It's all hand-painted. Let me lift that catch for you. You can look at it very quickly because it's an absolutely beautiful piece, but it's got songbirds painted all around the outside, a poem over the keyboard. You want to help me lift that? Thank you. And there you can see the sunset with the flamingos and the palm trees. So it's just a wonderful old piece.
Well, how did y'all like learning about John Dean Gillette? That was quite a place, wasn't it? Our next stop is going to be up in Lincoln. It's about 20 minutes away, Lincoln College Heritage Museum. And I also want to tell you, not only is that a wonderful museum, but the college is sponsoring your lunch today. So make sure that you tell them thank you. They've been really nice to host us, number one, but also to feed us, number two. So that's really a wonderful thing. And we'll be arriving there in just a few minutes. So just relax. And I know you've been on and off the bus a lot, so this is a nice break. Okay? Okay.
My name is Melissa Weisert. I'm the Assistant Director of the Lincoln Heritage Museum, and behind me is Mr. Ron Keller. He's the Executive Director, and we'd both like to welcome all of you to the Lincoln Heritage Museum. Before we begin talking about the museum, I do want to give you a little bit of history about the city of Lincoln and Lincoln College, which you're in right now. Lincoln, Illinois has a long history with Abraham Lincoln, and this city was very dear to his heart. This city is actually the first city named after Abraham Lincoln before he became president. And it was actually Abraham Lincoln himself who came to christen this city. Friends of Lincoln, they wanted to create a city here, and they asked Lincoln to drop the contracts. And to honor his contribution, they decided to name this city after him. On August 27th, 1853, Lincoln came to his namesake city, and he christened the city with the juice of a watermelon. A very cute story. On one of the wagons there was a watermelon, and Lincoln broke it, poured the juice into a glass, and then poured it on the ground. This college, too, has a long history with Abraham Lincoln. This is the only college named after him before he was assassinated. On February 12th, 1865, this university was chartered. That was Lincoln's last living birthday, and they named the college because of Lincoln's connection with the city, and many of the founders of the college personally knew Lincoln. Our museum got its start in 1942 when an alumni, Judge Lawrence Stringer, donated his Lincoln collection to the college on the grounds that a museum be established. And since then, we've only continued to grow. And actually, we're still in the process of growing. Soon we'll be moving to a much larger site. But here in this museum, you'll see a collection that you will see nowhere else. All right, well, in this case, we are actually lucky enough to have some of Mary Lincoln's mourning clothes. Mary Lincoln, she lived 17 years after the assassination, and she never left mourning. She was so devastated by the death of her husband. But if you notice, we have her fan, her scarf, and her traveling case. We're also lucky enough to have some of Mary Lincoln's hair. You can see it right here. And in the next case, we're also lucky enough to have locks of Abraham Lincoln's hair, and their third son, Willie Lincoln's hair. And at that time, it was a very sentimental gesture to give pieces of your hair to someone. Either you were leaving or they were leaving, but you gave a piece of your hair so they could take you with them always. And in the case when children would die, parents would normally take some of their hair as a remembrance. And also during this time, jewelry, wreaths, decorations were made out of hair, just as a sentimental way to remember people. One of my favorite pieces here in the collection is this rocker. The Lincolns, Mary and Abraham, they had 4 boys, Robert, Eddie, Willie, and Tad. And the Lincolns, they really didn't believe in disciplining their children, so the boys, they got in quite a bit of trouble. This rocker right here, it belonged to Thomas Lincoln, their 4th son. Thomas, he was better known as Tad. When he was born, his father thought he looked like a tadpole, big head, little body, so he nicknamed his son Tad. But this rocker right here, it belonged to Tad. And Tad, he was always getting into mischief, and he actually carved his name in the back of this rocker with a penknife. He was probably around 7 or 8 when he did this, but I'm sure Mr. and Mrs. Lincoln didn't get angry. They probably laughed at Tad's mischief, and they were probably really happy that he was just carving his name in the back of the rocker too. But while we're here, I'll talk a little bit about this saddle as well. The museum is home to a large collection of Civil War artifacts as well, and this saddle was actually used during the Civil War. It belonged to James Milner. He was originally from Waynes County, Illinois. He later settled in Sangamon County after the war, but he mustered in April of 1864, February of 1864, when he was 18 years old, and he took this saddle with him. He fought until April of 1865, when he was then released from the service. One of the final pieces that I'd like to point out to all of you is this picture on the wall. It's called The Head of Lincoln. It was recently donated to the museum in 2008. The artist, his name is Sasha Newley. His mother is Joan Collins, and his father is Tony Newley. And he actually donated this piece to the museum because he felt that he could feel the spirit of Lincoln here, and he wanted this picture to go somewhere where everyone could enjoy it. And it is a unique interpretation on Lincoln. It features a younger image of Lincoln, but behind it you can see the wording. Those are the words of the Gettysburg Address. So it's one of our more unique pieces here in the museum, and we're very happy to have it.
Next stop, Weldon Springs State Park, home of the Union School, the Old Town Hall, and the Veterans Memorial on the lake.
Welcome to Weldon Springs. I'm Carol Thompson. I'm the interpreter here. I've been at Weldon Springs for about 25 years, but I've been coming here since I was a little girl. The park's pretty special for me, and I am delighted that I get to show it to you today. We are in the Texas Township Town Hall. This building was moved here in 1994 and opened in 1995. It's filled with all kinds of stuff that you might see if you were spending some time in the park. And we're standing here in front of a stuffed male wood duck, the duck in wedding clothes, and a peregrine falcon. Peregrine falcons are making a comeback in Illinois, and I'm delighted to give you an up-close look at one today. I have quite a collection of feathers here in the town hall, and I'd like to share some of them with you. I've been collecting them for, again, about 25 years. On the far left, you'll see great blue heron feathers. We have several great blue herons who make their homes here in the park. And if you're quiet as you're walking along the lake shore, you can usually get a close-up view. Beside those feathers are the Cooper's hawk feathers. Cooper's hawk is an accipiter. It's a bird that lives in the forest and eats other birds. In fact, a Cooper's hawk has been responsible for several of my favorite feathers in this collection. He has discovered that the town hall roof is a perfect place to pluck the birds that he catches. And so I often come to work and find a new pile of feathers down on the ground right in front of the door. Next to that, you'll see the ringneck pheasant feathers. Those a couple of nice tail feathers there. And we have the ringneck pheasant living in the prairie that's surrounding the town hall here. Next to that would be the short-eared owl feathers. The short-eared owl was a prairie owl, and you would expect to find him on the prairie that's surrounding us here. And the next panel is full of all kinds of songbirds. I mentioned that the Cooper's hawk has helped me out with some of those. My favorites there are probably the cedar waxwings. The wing tips have a tiny waxy red tip, and the tail tips are all bright yellow. I was delighted when I found those. Sorry for the waxwing, happy for the Cooper's hawk. That's kind of how it works. You'll see also a green-winged teal feather. Green-winged teal is a duck that lands on the lake, and they're often molting as they travel through, and we were lucky to get that glossy green feather from them. White-throated sparrow is just now returning to the park after summering in Canada. American goldfinch you'll find here on the lawn. They're right now molting back to their olive drab. They've been bright sunny yellow all summer. Black-capped chickadee also visits me frequently. I've got a little feeding station right outside the door, and they're some of my friendliest little birds. They'll let you get pretty close to them. I'm going to move to the next panel down. You're all right. And you'll see everybody's favorite, our state bird, the northern cardinal. But beside those are some of the flashiest of all the feathers, the yellow-shafted flicker. And yellow-shafted flicker quite often becomes a victim of our Cooper's hawk. And I have several piles of yellow-shafted flicker feathers on the table that kids can handle.
I couldn't help but notice that you said, yeah, I went to a one-room schoolhouse.
Yes.
Yeah? What is sitting here like? Does it bring back memories?
It really does. It really does. It was really different than when I went to other school, but it just brings it all back when you're sitting here and you think of all these things that I had. You know, we had the ink wells, and I've had my hair put in the ink, and I've had my braids cut from who's behind me. Yeah, this is. It just brings back all kinds of memories.
Not all good.
Not all, but I learned a lot, and I remember that teacher, Mrs. Whitcomb. She was really good with all of us, and if you were bad, the boys, or I didn't see any girls that were bad, but the boys, they would sit in a corner and put a little hat put on them, you know. And, yeah, and yeah.
You didn't get away with much in a one-room
Oh
schoolhouse.
no. She had eyes in the back of her head. Absolutely, yeah.
In a one-room schoolhouse, there's nowhere to hide.
No, there isn't. And she caught everyone that did anything, and yeah, and my brother was one of them.
And one thing we live 2 miles from the very tail end of the district, so I would have found it very difficult to walk those 2 miles. But my most wonderful memory of those grade school days is I had a pony named Georgie, and he got where he knew the way to school, and so I just put the rein over and let him go. And in those very, very cold nights of coming home, all I had to do was just gave him the rein, and he took me home.
Wow, you had it made.
I had it
You
made.
didn't have to walk to school. You had a pony.
I had a pony.
Yeah. Mount Pulaski is home to a very dedicated group of volunteers that keeps Logan County history alive at the Mount Pulaski Courthouse and the History Museum across the street.
I'm Betty Hickey, and I was born and grew up between Mount Pulaski and Elkhart. And I married an Elkhart man by the name of James T. Hickey, who became a Lincoln historian, so it sort of brushed off into me. And I came back after he passed away. Then I was introduced to the Mount Pulaski Museum, which we had joined, the Historical Society. So here we are, and here I am up here on the second floor, which I helped kind of put together a few years ago with a lot of good help. Anyway, you are in the music and sports room. We divided this room. I don't know which end the sports or the music, but we've got some wonderful display here. Tom Romer did our display, and he went back to all the directors of the Mount Pulaski High School, and he has them on the board back of you. And then Bob Gazaway did all the sports memorabilia, and he was a former coach, and he's still very interested in this. Back of you, if you'll step aside, over here on the wall is the highlight, a little girl in Mount Pulaski by the name of Vonderleef, from the Vonderleef family, who has a nursing home. She was very interested, big, beautiful voice. She was in fact sang in the old opera in Mount Pulaski, which was on the southwest side of the square, as I've been told. This display has a lot of her certificates, memorabilia of her life. And she was a competitor. I won't say a competitor, but Kate Smith sued her because she said she was the first lady of radio. Anyway, our Vonderleef, little girl growing up, she won out. And there's 2 records, and she believed there were over about 300 compositions of music compositions that she had written. Over here on the sports, I must tell you, this is a picture of Lester Werns, who was one of the leading band leaders, and brought the Mount Pulaski band parades and so on, marching bands. That was what I'm trying to say. On the top here, and I'm going to move this over, this is our 1936 team that went into the state, first in the state.
I'm Maxine Downing, and a tour guide here at the Mount Pulaski Museum, and proud to be that. This is a real old, like early 1900s bedroom, and we have quilts that were handmade and donated to us here. This one was made by a lady here in Mount Pulaski and donated. We have a beautiful wedding dress, and this was an 1883 wedding dress of Seda Camp Murphy in January 1883. We have a wedding coat that was donated by the Brysons, and mourning dresses, mourning bonnet and scarf, and there is jewelry and gloves. The gloves were only half gloves. They had no fingers. The washstand is an early 1900s washstand, donated by a family here. In fact, we have almost everything has been donated. This was donated, a washstand, to our museum. And we are very proud of all of it. We try to take good care of it and try to have to show people and to tell them the story.
We all have our Mount Pulaski cookie now for the ride home. It's been a great day. I want to thank everybody who joined us on the road with Illinois Stories. I'm Mark McDonald in Mount Pulaski. Thanks for watching.
For a DVD copy of this episode of Illinois Stories, send $19.95 to Network Knowledge, P.O. Box 6248, Springfield, Illinois 62708. Be sure to include the program name, broadcast date, and topic. You may also order with your credit card by calling 800-232-3605 or by using our secure server by going online to networkknowledge.tv.